Welcome to another Liquid Bullet Productions. Quite often I'm asked, what's it like inside the female prison? Now in Scotland we only have one female prison, which is HMP Cottonvale, and there's several smaller female units within the male prisons. I thought that I would share some of my experiences of how it is back then, because it was a long time ago, I'm a good girl now, and kind of how it's changed and how it's laid out now. So if we go way back to 1994, at 16 years old, I was given my first custodial sentence. Now in the transport going up to prison, we had to stop off at different courts to pick up other female prisoners. Next in my area was Kilmarnock Sheriff Court, and it was a woman called Rachel, and she got on the bus because it was Strathclyde Police that did the transport then, and it wasn't the sweat boxes, it was just your normal police vans. And she sat beside me, introduced herself, asked me who I was, and said, have you done the jail before? Is this your first? I was like, never, this is my first. Complete shock, stomachs in knots, thinking, what have I get myself into? Like, you've done it this time. So Rachel's like, don't worry about it, it's cool. It's nothing like what they say, never mind the stories. She's like, are you keeping the habit? I says, I'm not got a habit. She's like, but tell them that anyway when you go in, just so you can get a script, so you can get your head down. She's like, when you go in, strip search is standard, you're going to need to get showered, get your stuff, you need to see the nurse. You could be in 50-minute obs for night. Everybody comes in as a BCAT prisoner. That's it, it's standard. Our category system's slightly different from the English category system as well, although it goes A, B, C, D. Which we'll get to in another video. But going back to this very first time, you'd gone through into reception, and it's what we call dug boxes you're put into, which is a bit like being in the sweat box. It's the individual cubicle, you've got no room just to sit down. So sitting, you're waiting, screw comes along, strip search, clothes off, gets swapped out for your a bathrobe. Then it's communal shower, you have to have a shower. Then your reception desk, you get your pictures, your fingerprints taken, you get processed, get your number. Still remember mine, which was 26375. But I also still remember sitting there, looking round about me. It was noisy, it was smelly, everybody was complaining, nobody was happy. Everybody was like, wanting to know who was in, who was still in, who'd get out, what block they were going to. Then you get, after you've got processed, you're through to see the nurse. The nurse standard questions: do you feel suicidal, do you self-harm, do you have a drug habit? Now luckily I didn't at the time, which is just as well, because you're going to end up having to withdraw until the next morning until you can see the doctor. And then you get your pack as well. You've got the option, do you want the phone card pack or do you want the tobacco, lighter, cigarettes, 2 little chocolate bars, and then you also get a tea pack with the crappy packet of biscuits, which is custard creams or chocolate bourbons. Then you're off up to the block. Now, Cottonvale Prison, the way it's built then and the way it's laid out, is made to look like a collection of little houses, and from a distance, if you glance at them, it does just look like houses. And the layout inside back then isn't like any other prison that you've got, or even that's about now, because it was set up like little units to reconstruct the home environment. So when you go in, there was Romeo, which was remand, Sierra was sick, you had Yankee for young offenders, Bravo was Borstal, and you've got Papa was prisoner, you've got the central block and your work parties. But back then, although that was the names of the blocks, you weren't separated. Your YOs and your cons were all chucked in together. Sex offenders too, anybody that should have been in the numbers, there's no seg block, there's no segregation, you're all just chucked in together. Yankee was where you'd go into a jungle. It was filthy, it was disgusting. I walked in the door and it was just before lock-up, so people's buzzing about here, there and everywhere, back and forth. They're shouting, the screws are shouting, there's people arguing because they want the last minute on the phone, there's people shouting up the ring and down the ring because they want this or want that, and they want this one to come to here so they can talk to them. It smells disgusting. You can see the dirt round about you. That was it. Straight into Unit 5, because it's units in the blocks. Now, most of them had 8 units, So and then you always come into Unit 5. You're left standing there, just abandoned with whoever else has come up to the block with the runner, waiting on getting told what to do. I was holding my little bundle of your prison issue clothes that you're getting, because you have to put your dirty clothes back on after your shower until you get up into the block. So, Unit 5, they're processing you, they're telling you what cell you're going to. I ended up in Unit 3, and everybody's just getting locked up at the time, and I could hear the woman that was in the cell that I was going to shout, I don't want a first offender, and I don't want a young offender. I'm thinking, great, I'm both. What am I getting here? Door gets opened, woman standing there, knickers and t-shirt, skinhead, homemade tattoos. And I actually thought, I'm going to cry here. This is not good, and I've got no way to get out of here. But I'm looking as I'm walking up, as you say, each unit has got 7 cells in it, and over next to, and each has got an office for where the screw is, and then you've got a shower cubicle, a bath cubicle, and 2 toilet cubicles. And then directly in front of you, you've got a kitchen, and off to the left of that, it's like a sitting room, dining room type thing. But anyway, in it goes, doors shut behind me. Okay. Oh no, because I had experienced this woman at the Glasgow Sheriff where we'd get dropped off. So once everybody's away to work parties, on that first morning, you've got to go for an induction medical at the health centre with the doctor. Now, thanks to Rachel, I knew when I went, I was to say, even though I didn't have a drug habit, I did, and you make it twice as big as what you've got, because everybody gets a 28-day reduction of 6 yellow Valium and 2 double diffs. But it's enough to help you get your head down. And it's still chaos, still nobody's actually explained what you're meant to be doing, where you're meant to be going, and anything like that. That gets done, your runner takes you back over to the block, you're locked back up, it's lunchtime now. You know, the servery's open, you've got half an hour for lunch, people are back from work parties, grab your lunch, you sit in the sitting room. So in Yankee at that time, you were twoed up, everybody was twoed up, the only people that weren't were lifers, they were the only ones that get single bang up. I didn't have MD in because Lacey had got libbed that morning that I'd come in the night before with. But everybody else in the unit, all the older women, I was the only YO on the unit. So that was my first chance really to speak to MD. And you've got people asking questions, where do you come from, what are you in for, how old are you, do you know this one, do you know that one? So, all quite good, all not kind of bad people, but there was a couple of people I'm looking at thinking, you look a bit dirty, like physically dirty, even though now we were in like jail issue and should have been clean, which is another thing. There wasn't any laundry back then. There was meant to be a washing machine in each kitchen in each unit, but you're lucky if out of the whole block 2 worked, so you had to sit on top of the washing machine when your stuff was in it to make sure your stuff didn't go missing and it got a full wash and nobody was stealing it. So in the kitchens there was a cooker, there was a washing machine, a microwave, kettle and toaster. Sitting room, TV, your 3-piece suite, which didn't fit everybody, so folk were having to sit on the floor. You've got the dining table. You've got no rec area. There wasn't any rec. All you had to do, if you weren't banged up, reading your book and listening to radio, was watch the TV. There was the gym, but everybody took their turns. You could only go at night, and it wasn't every night. It was maybe only for an hour at a time. But again, you don't know any of this. You only discover it as you go. And what I didn't know at the time was young offenders had to go to YO gym daily, which was my worst nightmare. I don't do mornings and I didn't do anything physical back then. So the next day, Mr. Davidson, the PT instructor, shows up for why I'm like, I'm not going nowhere. So that was my first experience of getting put in report as well within 48 hours. So that was another new experience, and we'll get to that another time. But luckily, as I say, all the women were quite friendly. So at lunchtime, I think that was 12 till 12:30. Locked back up again until the work parties finish at 4:30, 5. Dinner's 5 o'clock. No, it's not. They must come back at 4. Dinner was 4:30 because at 5 o'clock we were locked back up again, 5 till 6, while the screws changed shift, got their dinner, did whatever they were doing. It was 6 till 9 was meant to be rec, and as I said, you've not got no rec area. You're going up to, you have to stay in your own unit with these women, whether you like them or not, whether you know them or not. and that's where you had to watch the soaps, because what else was on TV? Not a lot, especially back then. 9 o'clock, dub up. But between that 6 and 9, if you wanted a bath, you wanted a shower, you had to get it then. If you wanted to use the phone, that was when you did it, but you couldn't just go along and use the phone to phone anybody. You had to book a slot. So on a Sunday, you would get the form through to book your visits, book any, like a pro form to get any clothes or anything sent in. If you wanted to book money out your PPCs for canteen, because obviously you've got block wages and you've got your personal cash, 2 different days. That was all on a Sunday. So if you didn't get that done on a Sunday, you weren't getting the phone through the week, you weren't getting canteen through the week, you weren't getting nothing through the week, because not one screw would bend the rules for you and stick it in through the week for you. That's a kind of basic rundown of the kind of routine and what it was kind of like those first couple of days, which was a bit like, I don't really remember, I just mean my stomach being like knots and being on high alert, the noise, the smell, the chaos. But thankfully for Rachel, I kind of knew what was coming because she'd give me the heads up. And Rachel, a couple of weeks later, because she'd went to remand, came over and ended up as my pad mate, which was quite good because she was from my area and she was the first friendly face that I'd seen. So God rest her soul, she's dead now, but she did help me a lot. And it just goes to show it depends who you are, because there is a lot of bullying goes on, and it wasn't nice to watch because you did see it, young girls getting bullied for their medication, getting bullied into having relationships that they didn't want to have. Gay for the state is a thing, but it's not as common as what you think. You've not got that divide as well in the female prisons. It's very much a community and they do help each other out. So when you came in after a couple of days and people got to know me, it was like, here's toiletries, here's a spare jumper, here's a spare set of jeans, here's a little bit of this and a little bit of that to see you through. Do you need a couple of units on a phone card to phone home? So it's definitely not like what you expect in a female prison. So as you can see, it's not quite as bad as what you think it is. Everybody kind of rubs along and helps each other out. But that doesn't mean to say that that person that helped you out 5 minutes ago isn't going to turn on you like that, like any other prison. You've got to cope with sex offenders in your unit. Now, it depends how the unit's made up and who's in it. Sometimes they can actually sit in the unit with you. The screws are always there to protect them. You cannot even look at them the wrong way, bar you're the one that's on report or you're the one that's getting carted. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in some other videos as well. But what I can tell you is sex offenders can cause issues in the room, in a unit between people that are really, really close. And I can give you the example of, in a later sentence, I was in when they were known as the Greenup Mob. The bitches from hell had come in. There was 4 of them. The other co-accused was a man who got sent to bar. They're all 12 and up because they had taken disabled women hostage, did some awful, awful things to her. So it's what would be known in my area as a beastie charge. England, you're going to say like a nonce charge. Wrongings, just wrongings. But there was one of them that was nicknamed Chucky, Julie Duffy. Horrible, horrible girl. I hated her with a passion. I don't like anybody like that in me anyway. But me and my best friend were padded up at the time. And for some reason, she spoke to them. She believed the bullshit that they weren't guilty. They all tried to help. They were all scared and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. But this day I've come back from work and this one's been standing at the door of our cell, talking into the cell to my best friend Alana. She's been sitting in a chair facing the back cell, facing out. Now, as I've walked up, I've heard this Chucky one turn and say, I've been like, what are you doing there? She turned and not said spoke to me, but she said to Alana, see what I mean? Now to me, I've took that as in they two have been talking about me. So as I went by, I was like, the fuck? And I've went in and I've slammed the door shut because I'm thinking, what one am I can get a problem with here most? Her or Alana? Because Alana knows how I feel about them. Told them time and time again, don't have them anywhere near me. She's obviously known what was coming next. So as I went forward to talk, which was 2 steps, she stood up and stuck the head in me. Nose burst open. We've ended up fighting that day because I've thought that they two have been talking about me and the fact that she's let her stand at the door. And she's thought that, well, I don't know what she thought, but we ended up fighting before that. She just knew I had a problem. And that was the first time either of us had been properly wrapped up, carted to the seg block, which is a whole nother story because, and let me tell you, it hurts. I don't care what anybody says, it hurts. And you're screaming and you're begging. I'm like, please. It is agony. But yeah, best friends on the outside, best friends on the inside, and that one, deviant, managed to cause a whole issue for one sentence. So it's really weird how after a couple of weeks they get to kind of settle in and people kind of just leave them to it most of the time. But yeah, they can cause big issues on a unit just because everybody's got a different way that they want to deal with people like that. But as I say, get some other videos out with some more stories about work parties, about actually being on the unit. It's actually quite boring most days. Not a lot happens. But then you've got visit days, then you've got weekends, you've got birthdays, you've got Christmas. You've got different things going on here and there. You've got the prison officers that are wanting sexual favours so in exchange for whatever it is you're wanting. Then you've got just the relationships involved, some of the faces. The categories, progressing through the category system as well was quite hard. Some people it's quite easy. I did the TFF unit, which is training for freedom, once I get my DCAT, outside work parties. We'll go into all of that. But that's just a little taster of the daily routine and what goes on. And we'll get to the other smaller female units. I've shipped out a couple of times. They run completely different to what Cottonville did, which there was another learning experience with that. But as always, if you're enjoying the content, give us a thumbs up. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. And remember, and come and find us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram and Facebook.